What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and if you own a PlayStation 5, you're probably playing Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which I have completed myself and snagged my 147th Platinum trophy thanks to it. Overall, I thought the game was good, but its story, in my opinion, lacked the emotional beats of the original. I felt many villains in Spider-Man 2 were not explored enough, or they were wasted for story purposes. And I also think Spider-Man 2 doesn't fix the prevailing problem that many AAA open-world games have, which is side content that oftentimes feels tedious or dubious at best. Like how in one mission, Miles can help a blind old lady and eventually gift her a robotic dog as a pet. Sure, it sounds cute, but dude, if that dog bugs out even once, that lady will be turned into human sushi, but whatever, it's content I guess. And the lady is blind, so there's some inclusiveness for you too. And speaking about inclusiveness, that's kind of what this video is all about. How Insomniac has filled Spider-Man 2 to the brim with pandering, to the point that it feels like it overshadows other key features. Don't worry, no spoilers for the story or anything, but all I'll say is that the game makes it very clear that Insomniac has plans to eventually phase Peter Parker out of the role of Spider-Man and instead make Miles the main character. And I, for one, am not cool with that because Peter is Spider-Man, always and forever in my mind. Miles, like I've explained before, is Miles, and he needs his own identity instead of co-opting another, but I'll talk about Miles more later on. But for now, this brings us to this article from The Gamer titled, "Queerness is Everywhere in Spider-Man 2. The author of this article, Jade King, praises Insomniac for filling the game to the brim with identity politics. She uses Black Cat as a core example, stating that Insomniac confirms Black Cat is bisexual in the game, since she openly states she now has a girlfriend. Jade King is very happy about this. But if they read a Spider-Man comic before, they know this is nothing new and Black Cat has been bi for years now. But of course they didn't read a comic, this is a modern games journalist we're talking about. It's only about window dressing for them, where things need to be plainly stated and pointed out to them like toddlers in order for them to recognize things. Jade even uses Black Cat's bisexual identity as a gotcha towards the male gaze when they say, "Black Cat's bisexual identity fits brilliantly with her character as a seductive burglar willing to pull vulnerable men into her grasp before taking advantage of them, only to subvert their pursuits in favor of loving another woman." Wow, so progressive, just so amazing. Don't you love it when these journos think they've discovered a new element on the periodic table, while being completely oblivious that the thing they're convinced that they discovered has always been there all along and everyone but them has known about it already? Because that's what this Black Cat nonsense is. But it doesn't stop there, nor does the pandering. At one point in Spider-Man 2's many side quests, you even get to play as Miles' deaf girlfriend, who personally, for me anyway, the chemistry between these two feels incredibly forced and not at all natural. Haley is deaf, and she was introduced in Spider-Man Miles Morales as a side character who likes to spray paint art on walls. Insomniac clearly loves her so much that they decided to not listen to fans when they told them that we don't want to play anyone but superpowered beings. So now, of course, you get an entire mission where you can now play as Haley. This is incredible. This is so inclusive, dear viewer, because now you can walk and take elevators and even slowly drag an analog stick over to paint stuff on walls. Because I don't know about you, but when I play a game called Spider-Man 2, if I'm not playing a normal human being doing normal boring people stuff, in a game where I can fight mutant lizards or shoot Bukake alien goo out of my body, the game is simply not complete for me. Thankfully, the Haley mission is just that, it's one single mission. But by God, could I not wait for it to end, since I don't play Spider-Man to be a normal person. I play it so I can yeet myself at 200 miles per hour over city buildings while kicking mentally deranged criminals in their chest cavity while calling them names. Because that's what Spider-Man does. But alas, we must pander for gameplay and customer satisfaction must be sacrificed in the name of the glorious message itself. Then it shall be done by Western developers, I guess. But usually when it comes to these AAA westernized games, it's the same thing as always, which is that it's pandering. All of it. Every single detail flag or forced non-main character mission. It's all just pandering for the sake of gaming journalists so that they write articles like the one The Gamer did. But like Spider-Man 2's story says, everything is about balance, and for every bright and happy representational act, there must be an equal dose of sobering reality that exposes all of this for what it really is. Previously, I stated, but it bears repeating, that Insomniac in their Pandering hilariously managed to forget Miles was Puerto Rican and put the Cuban flag instead, which was not only tone-deaf, but laughable to see because it showed that even when companies pander, they always oust themselves as not doing these things for genuine reasons. How do you pander as hard as you do in Spider-Man 2 and fail to realize the nationality of your beloved other Spider-Man that you desperately want to push to overshadow the original one? You do it because no matter what companies try to do in order to convince you, these companies will always tell on themselves. They will always find ways to slip up unintentionally and prove that these things are there simply for reasons like ESG and to increase stuff like DEI or Diversity Equity Index. It's extra hilarious because Miles has a Puerto Rican suit and at least they get that one right. If they got the suit's flag wrong, that would have been delicious irony, but alas, at least someone over there knows their flags. But also when I say these companies just push diversity for diversity's sake and never actually fully embrace or believe in their ideals, I truly mean it. And whenever I see a big game push these kinds of stuff, I immediately always think to myself, impressive, very nice. Now let's see the Middle Eastern version. Which brings us to this article titled, Marvel Spider-Man 2 Removes Pride Flags in Middle East Version. Of course you guys did. You can always count on these companies to pander where they can and immediately bend the knee and erase all of their brave inclusiveness when it comes to profits. If Insomniac and Sony actually cared about their diversity, they would simply refuse to sell the game in the Middle East and force the Middle East to bend their knee to their whims, but instead of course they do the opposite. And it worked out for them of course, since Spider-Man 2 sold 2.5 million copies in under 24 hours. Which is a new personal high score for Sony's first-party games, and I mean good for them. The game is actually great when you stick to what actually matters in a game called Spider-Man. When you're swinging around, beating up criminals, and slapping disabled scientists who turn into lizards around, the game is a fun time, no alcohol required, as one of my favorite YouTubers would say. But other times you're constantly fed these pandering woke things whenever they can. Mind you, many of Miles' side missions, they feel like afterthoughts. And most of the time, I found Miles to be kind of an afterthought in the game's story until near the end. You even have a side mission where you have to help a student ask his boyfriend to prom. And it's not even that the pandering is whatever. It's also that Miles' missions are mostly just annoying in terms of how you do them. In Peter's missions, shit is blowing up constantly and he's facing existential Lovecraftian mental crises. And he's shooting splooge goo on baddies constantly. And in Miles, you just help a kid ask another kid out to prom, or you find a school mascot that is being held captive. I get that Miles is supposed to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but Jesus Christ dude, are his missions boring to play through. I wouldn't blame anyone for ignoring Miles' side content, and I wouldn't even say it's because you don't like diversity or inclusiveness. It's simply because this is a video game where I can do crazy shit like swing through the city on my wingsuit and fight Kraven's goons, yet you got me here holding down a button as some random normal human sprays paint on a wall. Not to mention the game also pushes Mary Jane missions on you too, and while many fans told Insomniac that we don't want these, of course they said nah, screw that, and they pushed it anyway. Now Mary Jane is Claire Redfield from Resident Evil meets Lara Croft from Tomb Raider. And all her missions do is make the bad guys in the game seem pathetic. Like, I guess slight spoiler sort of, but not really. Anyway, one mission has Mary Jane infiltrating a camp full of Kraven's hunters. And these enemies are supposed to be apex predators. Like, their entire shtick is that they literally are bred to hunt things by using their senses. Yet an ordinary New York City human with a taser is able to single-handedly stealth through a camp and take out loads of goons. This doesn't make Mary Jane badass to me. If anything, it makes the villains look incompetent and it lessens their foreboding nature. Why should I take these hunter dudes seriously when Mary Jane with a taser can take them out? And these guys are a threat to New York City? Really? Please stop doing this, game developers. If I play a video game where I'm a superpowered badass, the last things players want to do is play the typical "your powers are lost" mission. Or switch us to the perspective of some normal person. The game isn't called Deaf Girl and Ginger Lady. It's called Spider-Man 2, for God's sakes. And the whole Middle Eastern thing just kind of solidifies it further that when push comes to shove where it really matters, these companies, whether it's Sony, Microsoft, or others, will all fold like lawn chairs when it comes to representation. It's just how in Disney Star Wars they try to incorporate stuff like same-sex kisses in blink and you'll miss it sequences. But these are all done on purpose in order to farm ESG score, and conveniently have it placed so if those scenes are removed, the product will still work when it's sold in Middle Eastern countries or wherever else disavows that sort of thing. If these companies actually did care about representation, they wouldn't hold back. But money is and always will be the prime reason for any of these things existing. No amount of virtue signaling will stop any corporation from abandoning their values immediately if it means it'll hurt their profits. After all, it was also discovered in Spider-Man 2 that in the Latin version of the game, they explicitly use made-up words to effectively push concepts like Latinx or Latinx or however the hell you want to say it. Like I said in a previous video, I don't care if I'm saying Latinx wrong because Latinx is not a thing anyway. Latinx is just something cooked up by liberal white people to pander to audiences they don't understand. Latin people are not victims, and fans have made it abundantly clear that whenever this kind of crap shows up in media, that their language is based solely on male and female variations, and that's it. One Twitter user perfectly puts it by saying white Americans changing another country's language to make themselves feel better. And that's exactly it. You see, you might be watching this video and thinking, is ENDYMION racist? Is he against inclusivity? But the truth is that I just don't naturally look at a group of people or individuals and immediately think that as a white person myself, that I have to save them or something. That me as a white person, I have a moral duty to be your savior because I am simply white. It's utterly ridiculous, and you'll never catch me calling someone Latinx, as it's been made clear by fans who speak that language that they'd rather you call them a slur than Latinx anyway, but these woke liberal companies have an overlaying white savior complex to their way of thinking. They have to save you, they have to help you, they have to represent you. Because you are just a weak person of color and oh, you're just so weak and vulnerable. How can you, as a person who is not white, understand the power and privilege that a white person has? Please take their white liberal hands so we can uplift you from your state of poverty and weakness. For white people will save you all in the end, because white people, after all, are the ones mostly pushing dumb shit like Latinx and Pandering anyway. You guys don't need saving. Nobody is somehow better than others because of their skin tone. And these companies need to stop pandering like this because it's so obvious it's barely skin deep. Calling someone Latinx unironically is probably one of the most insulting things you can do to someone of that culture. It's the same way when you see or hear a white person look you dead in the eyes and say, oh, we're hiring you for diversity. These woke weirdos genuinely believe it's their moral duty to uplift you. Like without them, you will be left to crawl in the mud without their amazing moral touch. It's so blatantly racist and offensive, but it makes me laugh all the same every time I see it. Because these companies will just keep doing it because that sweet ESG score matters more to them than integrity ever will. I actually hope one day these woke weirdos come up with a Latinx variant to refer to Muslim people. Because, just imagine the outrage to that one. Hello, my fellow Muslix or Muz-X people. I don't know, I'm spitballing how these idiots will say it. But if you give woke liberals an inch, they will find a way, dear viewer, because they always do. And don't get me started on some of the female models in Spider-Man, like how Mary Jane Watson looks absolutely nothing like her real-life model counterpart. She looks fine at times, and at other times she looks bizarre too. She kinda looks a little bit like the main character in Mask. Alright, that was a little mean, but come on dude, you see it, don't you? I'll leave the whole female attractiveness character model debate for a future video probably, but all I'm saying is if I had to go fight Kraven and Venom and I came home to this Mary Jane, I would be seeing Uncle Ben very soon, that's all I'm saying. And finally, I just want to say that if Insomniac does want to make Miles into their de facto numero uno Latinx, totally not Cuban Puerto Rican Spider-Man, they could maybe work on giving him his own identity and villains. Because if Spider-Man 2's plot told me anything, it's that if you remove Miles from over half or not more of the game's story, not much would really change. And that's more damning than anything else, and his main villain in this game being Mr. Negative for obvious reasons if you played the original game, when that's also a Peter Parker Spider-Man villain, it just keeps proving the same point. Miles needs his own villains. Prowler is a great start, he just needs like 10 or more Prowler-like unique enemies. And maybe then we can talk about him being sort of his own Spidey character. But as of now, he's just piggybacking off of all the designs and characters that exist in Peter's world. And the more they try to replace Peter with Miles, the more it proves that it's not being done for genuine reasons. I like Miles, I do think he's a good character, but the poor guy needs some uniqueness outside of the fact that he can turn invisible or shoot lightning randomly. However, knowing how modern comics are just cancer when it comes to how they're written, these writers would probably just make every one of Miles' villains a different version of a Republican man. I wouldn't put it past them to make Trump into a supervillain like Kingpin that Miles must now take down. What would be funny is if Miles got a villain that called him Latinx any chance they got. And the villain could shoot out rainbows that can cut through any surface. Actually, I better stop saying these things before I give Marvel writers too many ideas. But what do I know? I've only been a Spider-Man fan since I was like 5 years old. I've only played all of his games, bought his comics and toys, and dressed up as him for Halloween multiple times. So, maybe I'm just not the right person to be saying this. Maybe if I was a Latinx myself, Insomniac would listen to what I have to say. Alright, that joke was a low blow, but it's still not as low as removing all of your LCD TV, LGBT, LMNOP content from your game the moment Middle Eastern markets tell you to. But as always, thank you for watching, dear viewer, subscribe for more content in the future, and like this video to help the channel out. Have a great day as always, thank to my patrons, and use my G Fuel code if you wanna. Thank you for everything, and I'll see you in the next one.